It is now 6:03. Apologies for the little bit of delay. Thank you for your patience. So I'm going to call the WSESD board to order. The meeting of the WSESD board will come to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely, and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and to participate contemporaneously. Please note that while we will strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it is important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If a member of the public or of the public body has technical difficulties accessing this meeting remotely, please alert us by email. In the event of a technical difficulty that cannot be resolved, we may continue the meeting if necessary to time and place certain. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. Okay, so I have been asked to amend the agenda by a member of the administration to include a motion coming out of the Finance Committee. So I am going to add that after the clerk's report. And so you may notice on the agenda, right after student matters, there's board vacancy. We are going to address that promptly at the beginning of the meeting so that we have the benefit of the board member. We have set aside a specific amount of time for that. It may be, I was trying to be generous and not under budget on time. Hopefully we will be very efficient, and if we are, Mark, are all the admins here who would be presenting, or is anyone coming?
Stacy's here, one of our literacy coaches, and we're waiting on Brian Bittner to join us.
So I did extend to Mark that that they could show up at 7:30 if that was more convenient for them. And so if we get to 7:30 or 7:45, we get to that time period and we get done with the board vacancy before that, then we will move on to other pieces of the agenda, waiting for the other person to arrive.
I think Brian was planning on being here around 7 o'clock. So.
Okay, so. And so then the last thing that I want to do is I just want to acknowledge that there are some challenging things going on in the larger world. It's not the first time we've had challenges going internationally across the world. It's certainly, I don't anticipate will be the last time. It mirrors some of the challenges that we face in our community. So I will say that I am going to try to be mindful myself, and I'm hopeful others will, that when you are, just to be mindful that everyone else is a person, and in dealing with potential conflicts with other people, they just be mindful of that. So. Okay, so moving on from that, we move on to student matters. It is 6:07. So we have 5 to 10 minutes for student matters. If either of the student reps want to, do you have anything you would want to bring to the board, or?
I'm good for tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The other day was Diversity Day last Friday, and there was a handful of kids that did not show up, at all. And it was kind of really unfortunate because it's you're not even getting graded for what you learn. and like it's a good like opportunity to learn about just like cultures all over the world that could be like integrated with your school. And so like a lot of those students who missed out had to get like permission from their parents, and so like that just shows that their parents aren't really concerned with this diversity day either. And so I feel like, I don't know, that we should kind of just reach out to parents about how like important it is, and to like, I don't know, because like kids are gonna skip school like sometimes, but I feel like it's important that like an important day like that, it should be more like, not like mandatory that you be there, but be more like open, like making sure like we have as much people as we can. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Laura, when you say a handful, how many are you talking about?
Well, I'm not too sure like of the exact number, but the parking lots were like empty, like the student parking lots, and then like just like, because usually when I'm leaving school, it takes so long. It takes like 10 minutes to like leave the parking lot. And so like, and I literally like, I've never seen like such slow traffic on a school day. It was crazy. And like, there was like just barely anyone there.
Is there anyone else online? Ricky, would you like to speak to a student matter?
Please, thank you. I was curious if the students had any thoughts and feelings that they would want to share about how for the appointment of a new school board member that none of the candidates had their names or any information about them, like their cover letters or their photos or contact information posted on any of the school publications before this meeting, and that no time was allotted for the public to ask the candidates questions directly.
Did either of you want to respond to them? Did you have a response to it?
I couldn't really hear well, but did she say that we're getting a new student candidate?
No, we are going to vote on we have one board member who stepped away from the board in June, and so the board will be selecting a replacement, but it is only until March, when town meeting day, when a new member will be selected. So this is about a 5-month period of time. So did either one of you want to have a response to the?
I mean, personally, I don't mind as long as that they obviously care enough to put in the work, and not just the work, but like give valid opinions on it as well. Because you can just put anybody on the board and they'll give any random ideas out there, but it just depends. Like, I don't care. Like, I do care, but about like it has to be a good person with good reasons and intentions as well.
I have a follow-up question about, like, when they say a good person, like, do they have any priority for any of the candidates that have gone through the actual full democratic process for the election before? Like, I'm the only one who did. I had over 200 votes from the public versus the rest of the candidates that nominated themselves to be appointed. None of them went through the actual public election.
Did either of you want to respond to that, and then I will respond?
I'm good.
I can't really respond to that.
So what I will say is I will acknowledge that you did run in the past, and this is a separate proceeding from that. It was designed to address the needs of the current needs of the board. We currently need another board member, and so the process that we have been advised by legal counsel is this is the process to go through, and this is the process we're doing. So are any other comments from either of you? Are there any other students on the?
I do have one question that Laura did talk about a little bit. I'm not too familiar with the actual protocol of Diversity Day. So is it an optional? Is it done during a time where it's an optional?
it's on a school day, so it's kind of like, it's just like a regular school day, just with like different content being taught. So it's not like whatever your schedule is, whether it's like you have math, science, English, Spanish. Instead, it would be like you go to your advisor, and then you learn about really important like content about really important cultures, and then you just keep going with their advisories to different places, and then it's just like a regular school day, but honestly
So I'm
better.
kind of curious about the individuals that didn't participate. I mean, how would they get parental permission?
If you don't mind me answering, it's like, if you're not over the age of 18 or 18 in general, you can't call yourself out saying you're not going to school today. So they had to ask their parents if they can be excused from school. And from what I heard from not only the cafeteria lady, but from other teachers that I've seen in the co-op when I go, they said, yeah, there's going to be a lot of kids not going to school that day. And I believe it because not a lot of students, on days like that, if it's not a mandatory school day, like a mandatory school day, where they actually have to do something and it doesn't affect their grades, they're not going to go. They're not. Like 100% of the time, they're not going to go.
Yeah, and like I remember at work the other day, this girl was like, "Oh, I'm gonna skip Friday," and I was like, "It's in a way, it's so easy. Like you're not like getting grade, like you're literally not getting graded, and it is like so important. And like it's honestly like Friday was honestly so fun. Like it was like the funnest school day I ever had. So it's like I tried motivating the person to like come on and go, but she ended up not going. But I don't know. I feel like we just need like as like community members, like whether you're a staff or a parent or another student, like I feel like it's so important that you like encourage people to like learn, whether it's like normal like schoolwork or diversity day. Yeah.
I think it's great that you're bringing this concern up, Laura, and we do have another diversity day scheduled for, I believe, May. So we should be thinking about how we approach that day and learn from what happened this fall.
Yeah.
Can I add a couple things to this? Just, it is working towards Justice Day is the new title of this day, and so that's kind of been the push. Also, historically, it's been an opt-in, meaning like they would set the whole day up and then advisories or classes could choose whether or not they decided to go. And about a year ago, we decided there was no option, like we're just gonna have the day and then advisories would move around together and go to the different events. And last year we noticed the attendance issue, and so this year we put into place the after school sports and theater option. And if you're not in school, you can't participate in your after school event. So attendance was taken for all those students. And that's why the email went out on Thursday saying if you choose to not come to school tomorrow, then know that you can't go to your theater or music or sporting event in the after school part of the day. So we've seen an incline in like attendance, but I would agree it's still an issue. But I do appreciate you bringing it up too.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'm part of this, I'm not sure what it's like actually called, but Miss Alderman, she runs it, and it's like
The advisory.
Yeah, advisory council. And like we're all as a group trying to make sure that like working towards social justice, that's what you said, like that's more like integrated with like not like maybe not like an everyday thing, but like more often than just like twice a year, because it's like really important. And a lot of students don't communicate with other students like outside their friend group. So like how are you gonna learn about more culture and like just like stuff on that topic if you're only sticking with the same people? So yeah.
Robin, you had your hand up.
Oh, never mind.
Liz,
Okay, Liz, very quickly.
Yeah, how accessible are these events to kids who have physical disabilities?
They're, the same as a school day. It's where they're all housed in the same classrooms and building facilities that we use during a regular school day.
Okay. Thank you all. It is 6:17 and we are moving on to the board vacancy. So each candidate will be given 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes if they would like to address the board further. Information was sent to the board, to each of the board members. The information was also sent to the Brattleboro Select Board. Robin, would you like to speak to your attendance at that meeting?
Sure. I attended the Brattleboro Select Board meeting. The school board item was very brief. They basically just said we're required by statute to give feedback on these candidates, and they basically felt that the decision really laid rightfully in the hands of the school board, so they declined to comment.
So we have fulfilled that requirement. Okay. So each candidate will have up to 5 minutes, and then the board will go into executive session to deliberate, and following that we will have a public vote. I will go in the order of the applicants, as the applicants did send their inquiry. Matt Shibley, did you want to speak to the board?
There wasn't anything I had to add, but wanted to be available in case the board had any questions of me.
Okay, thank you. So if you're ready, if you're prepared, then we will move along to Laura Olivia Sweetman.
I'm sorry. Would you mind if we just asked each of the candidates to just briefly introduce themselves and speak to why they're interested in serving on the board?
Sure.
Of course. I assume, yeah. So
Yes.
My name's Matt Shibley. My wife, Jill, and I live in Brattleboro with our two sons, Jack and Gavin, who we're grateful that they attend Green Street School. When I heard of the board vacancy, I felt compelled to throw my hat in the ring because I care about Brattleboro and the students in Brattleboro. I care about our education system, and so I thought if there was an opportunity to help, I stand up for that. So that's why I'm applying.
Thank you, Robin, for that. So Laura Olivia Sweetnam, are you here? Is she
What was the name?
on that? Laure, Olivia Sweetnam.
There's one telephone number in there.
Where is it from?
I will ask one more time if Laura Olivia Sweetnam is on the Zoom, if you can unmute and identify yourself. Okay. Then we will move along to Ricky Rosati. You have up to 5 minutes. Would you like to address the board?
Thank you. I would like to introduce myself and yield the rest of my time to taking any questions by the public, whether they're attending virtually or in person with you. And again, I would like to underline that in the most recent election for this position, I did publicly receive over 200 votes. And that was because I campaigned for 2 years. But before the election, I was preparing to enter the election, trying to expand on enabling democracy within all of our processes and making information more transparent and accessible in a lot of ways that is really challenging and avoided enabling currently. And I also want to help with expanding decolonization efforts too. And I could read the reference letter that was sent from the elected councillor Jack Hughes Watso of the Odanak Nation. But I would prefer to yield what time I have to asking other people if they have any questions, but before transferring my time to reading that letter if there are no questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board?
I was yielding my time to questions to the public.
Well, the public doesn't weigh in on this. They will weigh in when it's in March. That's when there will, I anticipate, as has happened in the last two elections, there has been a candidate forum. So I would anticipate that they would, someone in the community, such as happened last year, would arrange a candidate forum.
Again, I'm not yielding my time to the board members, I'm yielding my time to the public.
Well, I'm going to, since the time is, it's at the board's discretion to provide the time to you, I'm going to ask if any board members have any questions, and if they don't, we are going to move along to the next candidate. Okay, we will, it's been suggested that we maybe use some of that time, or sometime if we can get through quickly, maybe we will have some questions at the end of after each candidate has made their presentation. So I did get a communication from Colleen Savage. She was not feeling well and will not be here, but would, I presume, still would like to be considered. Again, we did receive materials from her, and that has all been sent to each of the board members for them to consider. Is Liz Strong here?
Hi everyone, I'm Liz Strong. I live in Brattleboro. I've got two kids who are quite young. My son just entered kindergarten. We've already, with the early education team and the folks that we've met at his elementary school, been so impressed with the staff that you have, supporting families, connecting them to services, helping them with special education. We're also very active in the Asylum Seekers Project locally, and have had the wonderful experience of bringing their children through the services and supports you have here. So like other parents, when I saw the call for a pinch hitter to lend a hand, I was really eager to step up if that's what you need.
So then, if you don't mind, we'll hold off questions until, okay. So then we move along to Rich Levy, and my apologies if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly.
Levy.
Levy.
That's okay. Hi all, my name's Rich Levy. I've got two kids here in the Brattleboro school system. My daughter is a 5th grader at Academy School, and my son just started at BAMS in 7th grade. Similar to everybody else, it's I've always taken a very keen interest in my kids' day-to-day lives. Historically, that has manifested itself in being very active in their extracurricular activities. But this opportunity coming up, I felt like it'd be a great opportunity to lend a voice to their school time as well. I own a small construction company here in Brattleboro, and as such, I think that would be a great asset to the board in any conversations regarding facility maintenance, repair, any sort of capital improvements in that regard, as well as any sort of fiscal or budgetary constraints associated with those projects. Prior to my current profession, I was an organic commercial farmer for 15 years. That took me all over the country, and I do have some experience working with school boards, facilitating getting fresh local produce into the school systems for their school lunch programs and such. And that is something that still remains sort of a passion of mine that I would really love, if an opportunity arises, to potentially facilitate that. And I will leave it at that, and I thank you all for your consideration.
We are on to Brian Hughes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Brian Hughes. I am sort of new to Brattleboro. I've been here the last few years. And I remember right after I moved here, it was just at the start of the pandemic, and I remember watching the school board make some of the decisions they were making. I also have two kids in school, which seems to be the median across most of us. And I remember thinking, gosh, I would not want to be in their place for some of the decisions they're having to make. And then when I saw the email go out that there was a vacancy, I reconsidered that thought and thought maybe this would be exactly the time to be in their place. I don't have any education background, except going to school for a very, very long time as a pharmacist at the hospital here in town. And so bringing the healthcare aspect to the position. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Do any of the board members have questions for any of the candidates? I'll ask a second time.
I do. I kind of feel sorry to bring this up, but I just feel like it's one of the things that we're going to be dealing with very soon after all of these people enter the board. So I just wanted to know how these candidates feel they will be able to contribute to the process of dealing with the sexual abuse investigation coming to a close and trying to bring justice and healing to our community around that.
Do any of the candidates?
I can try to answer that question. I am an oral historian by trade and a project manager. I've been doing it for about 10 years. I've had the privilege of learning from many different communities in that role, being hosted by many different communities, and showing that I can listen and translate their words into action. I don't know where the process stands in seeking justice and healing, but I would be happy to bring my skills to bear there, knowing that this is not just an individual pain, but a community pain.
Yeah, I would say, so I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor in training. I've led multiple sort of organizations and groups, and certainly investigations have been a part of that. What I think I could bring to bear would be sort of a focus on, as the prior candidate mentioned, the entire community impact and ensuring that there is a place for all of those needs to be met and all those voices to be heard. Yeah, that's that. I feel like I could bring the mental health component to the table.
Ricky?
Thank you. Again, my name is Ricky Rosati, and the candidates during the election were asked a similar question during one of our debates, but that question wasn't actually allowed to be aired to everyone that was watching. And so I contacted the people who asked privately, and I also put on my social media the answer that I really encourage putting a link on the school's website to the lawsuit online, because to find the lawsuits and information, you really need to know specifically where the link is, so it's accessible and easy to find, so that people can have the constant status updates they want to find themselves, and also to try to prevent this from happening again by having a limited amount of leave time that's paid for anyone that is accused of sexual misconduct, because I think that the person that was accused, we paid about $70,000 to in leave time, which is just really a burden to everybody's taxes. So I also would appreciate, again, to ask for the opportunity to read elected Councilor Jack Hughes-Wetzel of the Odanak Nation, so that his voice can be heard about his recommendation for my appointment.
That recommendation was provided to all the board members, so they do have that. If anyone in the public would like to go and view it, they can certainly go on to the Brattleboro Select Board's website, and they do have that in their materials from the meeting on October 3rd. That's their background documentation that they used for the meeting. All the information from all the candidates is on there, so if anyone would like to go and read that. But as far as the board's deliberating and decision, they have been provided with that recommendation.
that information is hard to find. It's like page 60 in an over 100-page document. And so I would like to actually bring voice to what a member of a First Nations wrote, and who isn't just a member of a corporation posing as an Indigenous nation.
Well, I will respond to that very briefly, and then we will move on. I don't control how the Brattleboro Select Board presents their documentation. I would suggest that you may want to consult with them. That may be something that might be helpful for them to understand how people are accessing it or not accessing it. But I would refer you to contact the Brattleboro Select Board if you have a response to how they have their documentation on their website. Anyone else who would like to respond to that question, or are we ready to move on? Moving on. Okay, so we have heard from each of the candidates who were going to speak. Now the board will, I will ask if there is a motion to...
Mindy has a hand up.
Mindy.
I think you had one more candidate who was attending online. I'm wondering if he has an answer to that question, and thank you to Robin for asking it.
Was there someone else?
Brian.
Brian, did you?
You're okay. You were going. I didn't want to slow you down.
I wasn't going to put anyone on the spot. Any of the candidates, I'll give one more opportunity for any of the candidates to respond to that if they would like.
I'm happy to talk about it.
Sure.
So if in my position or if I was in the position on the board, then I would approach it with the same openness and transparency that is required in any of these sort of public matters, but also acknowledging that this is kind of the scariest sort of situation that we as the public are putting our trust into who is watching our kids, and that trust, it goes both ways. So just acknowledging that, making sure that we are understanding the fear that this puts in anyone in this situation, and carrying that with us and how we're going to act forward. So just keeping the acknowledgement open and honest.
Thank you. So now I will ask if there is a motion to...
Kelly, could I just make just the way I see this, how it's playing out? So seven candidates have opened up the possibility that they would like to fill the vacant Brattleboro seat. The board will make a determination for the position that will be for a 5-month duration. So in 5 months, that person that is chosen, who is the incumbent, can run again as every other Brattleboro individual that expressed interest will be able to run again also. So in March, the 4 towns will have a possibility of voting for whoever they want as a Brattleboro representative. So I would hope that the 6 people that aren't chosen would then run in March for one of the Brattleboro seats, which will also include the individual that is appointed tonight. So the appointment really is just an interim, and it's a gift of being the incumbent board member. So an incumbency has a certain amount of power, but I think it's really important that people realize that the decision made tonight by 9 board members is definitely overshadowed by what will happen in March, when all 4 towns will have the ability to vote, which is about 14,000 voters. There's a total of 18,000 people in the 4 towns. Obviously, all of them vote, but it is a decision of the public, not of the board. The interim is the board's choice, but in March, it will be the public's choice who is going to actually be the next board member.
Thank you very much, Sean, for that.
And I just only one more thing. Sure. So the person that is appointed tonight will have to run in March for the duration of the board member who is no longer here.
Or
So
they can run for any seat.
1 year. I'm sorry?
they could run for any of the seats that will be open, that one or one of the other ones.
Exactly, but there's also the 1 year remaining on the board member who's on. Yeah, and the other board seats will be for 3 years.
Thank you for that additional information and clarification, Sean. So I'm going to now ask if there is a motion to find that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or person involved at a substantial disadvantage, with the understanding that we would, with the expectation that a motion to go into executive session under 1 VSA 3133, the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, provided that the public body shall make a final decision to hire or appoint a public officer or employee in an open meeting and shall explain the reasons for its final decision during the open meeting. Is there a motion for such finding?
So moved.
Thank you, Deborah. All those in favor of making that finding, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. So now we will, I am looking for a motion to go into executive session under 1 VSA 3133, the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, provided that the public body shall make a final decision to hire or appoint a public officer or employee in an open meeting and shall explain the reasons for its final decision during the open meeting, with the clear definition that this is to discuss the appointment of this, the other board member. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Kim. All those in favor of going into executive session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. We are in executive session at 6:39. We will try to be as efficient as possible. So we are back. We are back from executive session. We exited executive session at 6:53. So I will say that this was a difficult decision, and it was pleasantly difficult because the first time around we received no candidates expressing an interest, and then we received one candidate that had to withdraw for personal reasons. And so we had 7 candidates, so I want to thank all of you for expressing an interest in helping us to serve the community and the students most of all. So I'm going to ask for the candidate that I'm going to ask for a vote on was the candidate that the qualifications seem to be the best for the position currently. But I will, again, just like Sean, encourage everyone to sign up to a run in March to please help us serve the community. Is there a motion to appoint Matt Shibley to the board?
So
to fill
moved.
his vacancy? Thank you, Robin.
Could I ask a question?
We're voting on this. You can ask it we're coming up on.
I think it's pertinent.
The board's going to vote first. All those in favor of Matt Shibley to fill the board vacancy, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, that was a unanimous vote. Thank you very much, and I thank all the candidates who did, and I would encourage you to continue to participate, whether it's in leadership councils or their committees. The board has committees that we can always use more voices from the community, and to sign up to run again for the board.
Can I just also say something, Kelly?
Sure.
I just want to say that I felt like we were not just lucky to have so many candidates, but to have so many really well qualified candidates that I think we would have been really well off to have any one of these people appointed to the board. So it was a very wonderful chance to have so many great people wanting to do this work.
Yes.
Here, here.
And I would just like to add that the process for the election in March actually begins in January in terms of making sure that your petition is out there representing your given town, even though you represent all 4 towns ultimately. But that process has to begin in January. That paperwork needs to get into the clerk's office at that time. Okay?
Mindy, did you have a very quick comment or question that you would like to present?
Well, my question is that Matt, so we know that one of the people named in a lawsuit against the WSESD is a professor emeritus at Landmark College, where Matt earned a certificate and was a counselor, employed as a counselor. And I'm wondering if you consider that a conflict of interest, that he is associated with the place where that individual who's been named in a lawsuit against the district is still emeritus.
So I'm going to make a very quick comment and then we're moving on. I recognize that this is a continuing concern in the community to make sure that our students are safe. I believe that the students at the high school and the schools are being served by the principals and the other administration, that if there is someone that there is a concern about, that they are addressing it. That doesn't come to the board unless it goes further and they appeal the decision. That being said, if we were to disqualify someone because they had a connection to a place where something happened, or someone is connected to some place, I'm not sure who would be on the board. So I'm not going to go into what the board's deliberations are, because that was done in executive session and that is appropriately confidential. But the board has voted to add Matt Shibley to the board for the next 5 months, and in March there will be another election, and the voters of the towns will determine who is going to be in that position. Thank you very much, and we are moving on.
Just one more thing.
Sure.
Congratulations, Matt.
So it is.
Join the table. So, yeah. So Matt, Robert's Rules of Order. Yes. All for you, as well as an orientation manual. It's a little heavy. Have fun, and we want revisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
You want to sign some warrants?
So it is 7 o'clock. We are actually a little early leaving this topic. We will move right to the admin report because Mark has said that all his people are here.
Yeah. So for tonight, we're going to do a presentation on the science of reading and how we're supporting our students with evidence-based literacy practices, and how we have for a number of years now. But before we get into that, I would like to reflect on today, which was an in-service day for our entire school district, all of our staff, certified, classified staff, and just highlight how we approach this day, because I think it's very exciting. So essentially, we hired consultant Allison Posey to provide 2 workshops on executive functioning, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. And while half of our school system was in the morning workshop with Allison, the other half was participating in homegrown professional development opportunities. So we offered over 20 workshops throughout the course of the day that were led by our own teachers, teachers who have gained this knowledge over their career and who are willing to share it with their colleagues. So in the morning, 20 workshops, and then in the afternoon, a pivot. Morning attendees with Ms. Posey attended in the afternoon. So just a lot of learning and professional learning was conducted today. Every staff member, certified and classified, engaged with our consultant and also with many teacher leaders throughout the school district. And most of these workshops were given by 2 educators, so about 40 educators participated in a leadership role today in delivering professional development. So it's a model that we're going to continue to explore in how we go about professional development and taking advantage of just the wealth of knowledge that we possess. And it's also just a nice organizational thing to do, to provide leadership opportunities to our folks who work so hard to get that education and are eager to share it. So, any questions?
Before you go on, I do have a question.
Yeah.
I had someone ask me today if there's ever an opportunity for parent input on PD topics, like workshops that parents would be interested in seeing.
Absolutely. We have to think about ways to provide that opportunity to get feedback, but
I mean, maybe there could be a question added to that survey that we give parents, just like what areas of professional development you'd be interested in. That's an open-ended question.
yeah, it's a great idea. Actually, it came up today in a workshop I attended. Deborah actually joined as well. And that session was the first one on the slideshow, the right to read, which directly relates to our presentation tonight. And essentially, there was a movie screening, about 80 minutes, and then facilitated discussion after the meeting, after the screening. And one of the comments was, this would be a great evening to host something like this at our school and engage in this level of a discussion with our families. So that was certainly noted and added to the minutes of the feedback, and something we're going to bring to the leadership team to think about how we can go about doing that. Yeah.
And I think also just like if it's individual for schools focused on something that's happening within a certain community or age group, I think parents reaching out to like building admin also, because we have our own PD days that are school focused, just to make sure that information's.
I think it also came up that it's a great documentary for every board member to view, as well as the pivotal questions that existed, the sort of small table breaking apart critical issues. It was really a wonderful experience to see professional development at work.
Yeah, it was great to have you with us, Deborah. So it felt like a very exciting day for the school district, and a model we're going to continue to embrace. For tonight, I'm pleased to introduce Stacy Sawyer, one of our literacy leaders in the school district, and Brian Bittner, who are here with us tonight to present on the science behind teaching and reading.
Where should we stand?
Wherever you want.
Closer.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Brian Bittner, district literacy coach. I've been a teacher in the district since 1999. Also have 3 children that went through Windham Southeast Supervisory.
Stacy Sawyer. I'm the other literacy coach, and this is my 2nd year in this role, and I'm excited to be here tonight. Just sharing some information.
Yeah, we just say, so the science of reading is currently like a hot topic, but it's not all that new. It's been, most of the things we know about teaching reading, we've known since the early to mid 70s. Some of those are just working their way into teacher training programs, which is kind of mind-blowing if you think about that. It is new and it's sort of a hot topic, but it's the body of evidence that I think we're talking about tonight isn't anything new, and many of these things have been around for many decades. So those are the items we hope to cover in our brief presentation tonight, looking at the tenets of the science of reading, looking at our approach, curriculum alignment, professional development, and our data-informed approaches that we use, and then we have a slide for additional resources.
So what the science of reading is not, is it's not an individual program of instruction, it's not an ideology or a philosophy, it's not a single component of instruction. And for those of us that have been in education for a while, it's not the swinging pendulum, like, oh, this is coming back around, a new idea and packaged in a new way, sort of thing. So those are the things that science reading is not. So what it is.
I just, if we could go back to that, because there was just an article this morning in BT Digger where somebody, I believe, high up in the BPA organization suggested our current debate is just a pendulum swing. And so it's really important to know that this body of evidence that we've been accumulating through scientific research for decades, 50 plus years now, is just not that. It's a continued trajectory on a path of knowledge. And so that language, whenever you hear that, a pendulum swing, that's sort of to me like a red flag that somebody doesn't really know what they're talking about. So just something to pay attention to be a savvy consumer, because I think that's important. So yeah, because I was this morning, my blood was boiling. It's not that. So as I sort of alluded to, the science of reading is a pretty vast body of evidence that we know about how we need to teach reading to children. And as I mentioned, the research has been conducted over 50 decades, that'd be quite a while. 5 decades around the world, and is derived from thousands of research studies. And we're talking about schools of education, schools of cognitive science, schools of psychology, where the evidence comes together for a consensus on how the brain learns to read. So we're going to introduce 2 conceptual models of reading, and I think those conceptual models of reading, I think there's a picture.
Yeah, just yeah. The conceptual model. These conceptual models are just going to help us understand how the brain develops that reading, and the relationship between language and literacy, and that reading is really a complex skill that requires lots of pieces to come together to make skilled readers, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about in the next slide. So there's 2 different models, the simple view of reading and Scarborough's rote model, and we're going to talk more about those in more depth.
And so this simple view of reading, which is simple, but it's actually pretty complex. So this is by 2 researchers, Goff and Tumner. This was presented first in 1986, so quite a while ago. And the simple view of reading contends, on the right here, you'll see RC, that is reading comprehension. Obviously, our ultimate goal of teaching kids to read is to understand and make sense of what they read. And the ability to do that is dependent on 2 variables. WR stands for word recognition. That is your ability to read a word. So there's 4 ways you could read a word. You could guess at that word, not recommended. If you've never seen it before and you know the letter sound corresponds, you could decode that word. Or if you see a word, let's say you're maybe a first grader and you know AT spells at, and then you can read words like cat, bat, hat, sat. And then if you've read a word enough times, you store that in a specialized area in your brain, and you could read that word by sight. So if I was to hold up a word that you've read before, your brain cannot read that word. So that would be the most efficient way to read a word is by sight. And so that's word recognition. And then when we take word recognition, you multiply that by your ability to comprehend spoken language. So if we remove the demands of print, so your ability to understand vocabulary, background knowledge of different genres, verbal reasoning, those are things that feed into language comprehension. And so the important component there, I think, is the next slide, is that the multiplication factor. So if you're if you're not able to read any words on the page, but you have great language comprehension, your reading comprehension score is a
0.
It's 0, right? And if you have really great word recognition, but you have very weak or non-existent, which is usually not the case, these are very extremes just to make a point, your reading comprehension would be 0. But typically we see kids like this, so your word recognition isn't great. So maybe let's call it on a 0.5 on a scale of 0 to 1. But your language comprehension is intact, so kids like this might be maybe heard of something called dyslexia or specific learning disability. We have kids that really struggle with reading words on the page. You can see how that impacts your reading comprehension. And then if you're weak in both, you can see how that really brings your reading down. So if you're 0.5 on a scale of 0 to 1 in word recognition, and a 0.5 on a scale of 0 to 1 with language comprehension. You see 0.5 times 0.5 is 0.25. So you can see how those variables interact with each other. And obviously, our ultimate goal would be to have students who are strong in both of those domains. So one model we use in reading to look at subtypes of readers, right? So this next model, so Hollis Scarborough developed this model, came to us in 2001, and it's a visual representation and sort of extrapolates on a simple view of reading. So you can see the bottom strands of the rope model contain the word recognition, all the strands that feed into word recognition, and the top of the rope model looks at those language comprehension strands. Again, our ultimate goal of reading being on the right side of the rope model. And so in order to recognize words, you need to have something called phonological phoneme awareness. You need to be able to tune into the sound layer of our language. You need some decoding and spelling skills, and then ultimately that leads to a sight recognition of that word. So if you see a word, that word's pronunciation is automatically activated in the brain. And then we have those top layers of language, as I sort of described, the language comprehension strands. So as I described, that background knowledge, vocabulary, language structures, verbal reasoning, and knowledge of different literacy genres. Those things all feed together to make skilled reading. And this is where we're going to talk about our programming that we have in place to support those strands.
So you can see the circles and the program that we have in place. So in those word recognition strands of the rope in the K-3 for our core instruction with all students, we have Foundations and UFly are the two different schools using different things, but those are the two structured, systematic instruction that takes place for that word recognition piece of the puzzle. And then the language comprehension, building background knowledge and vocabulary and genre and verbal reasoning and developing oral language, that comes in our EL implementation of modules, and that's being implemented in K-8. So students need all of those strands of rope instruction around all of those areas to help build into that increasingly strategic and automatic skills around fluency, even to produce skilled reading. And that's what makes it, reading is a complex instructional piece. All those strands have to work together to lead to reading comprehension. So just again, building background knowledge and vocabulary are critical. Not only reading comprehension, but also that also supports writing proficiency, which is another important piece of the puzzle for students.
So we have continued professional development that we offer our teachers. So I can sort of see it as the coaches in the curriculum assessment to identify programming to help with professional development, programming, and implementation. The top bullet there is the language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling is an acronym called LETTERS. LETTERS is a professional development module that I've been trained in and have provided professional development to the district, I think since like 2010. I'm currently training just about 40 teachers that work with me at the Oak Grove School Library from 3:30 to 5:30 on Mondays. And it's a great program because in completion, if you do 2 years of study, you can earn 12 graduate credits, which is a big motivator for teachers to take that in addition to learning about the science of reading. We also have, starting tomorrow, we're starting our round of data meetings in school. I think tomorrow we're at Putney right away, right? And then at Guilford. And then maybe you want to talk about the quarterly PD?
Yeah, and just those data meetings, it's around using some of that assessment data that we collect some assessments that help pinpoint where students might be struggling, and then use that data to fine-tune instruction and provide interventions around the science of reading to give them the supports that they need. And then we're also offering quarterly PD sessions for teachers 4 times this year, you can see, and really working on implementing EL implementation and helping teachers strategically plan their instruction around those upper strands of the rope. Dun, dun, dun.
This connection is not right.
Stay right there, Paul.
Don't wiggle. And then of course also teachers can attend local and national conferences and use their professional development funds for additional training options based on individual teacher choice. We are also working on coordinating our systems to help our learners. So we've talked about some of these programs already. The EL Education Foundations and UFly in terms of supporting our literacy instruction based on the science of reading, and also our assessment practices. These are our benchmark assessments that we give 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring, collect that data around where students might be struggling so we can provide targeted interventions to support their growth, both in literacy and in math. I know we're talking about literacy today, but don't want to leave math off the table. We're doing that in math as well.
And what I love about these conceptual models of reading is that we have different assessments, so we can measure those different strands. When we have a student who is not maybe progressing as expected, that we have tools that we use to measure these different areas of literacy, and then we work with teachers to help provide reading interventions or things we might want to do with a whole group of students or with a small group of students. So we have a very robust, I would say, assessment plan. We use for K3 to measure the bottom strands of the rote model. We use a tool called DIPPLS, which is an acronym, stands for Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. We have the spelling screener that comes from the professional development module that I run. And we have a few other assessments that I won't get into, but we sort of are able to assess those bottom strands in great detail. Those bottom strands of the root model are a lot easier to assess than the top strands. I don't know if you want to talk about. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're up there too. So those same sort of, and even though those say K3, we also might have readers above 3rd grade who are still struggling with some of those bottom strands of the rote. So providing those supports to those
Can I
students as
ask
well.
a question at this time?
Sure.
And DIBBLS, do you identify children with neurodevelopmental problems like the dyslexia? I just found out that Vermont is one of a handful of states that doesn't require testing in K3.
Yeah, so we've had that in place since 2009 or 8.
What, required?
For our district, we've been able to, we have a signature of what, and the results of these testing indicate our students that have. In Vermont, we don't use the term dyslexia, which is unfortunate. We use the term specific learning disability. If a student was to be referred for a special education evaluation, they would not be identified as having dyslexia. They'd be identified as having a specific learning disability, which that's another conversation.
Yeah.
But yes, we have the required assessments that a state would implement to screen for students with dyslexia. We've had in place for about 15 years.
And you do professional development for teachers in recognizing these disorders?
We meet on that data 3 times a year with every classroom teacher. Right? Yeah. Yes, so that's, I'm glad that you know that. That's a big problem. But we recognized that as a problem a long time ago and put those assessments in place. Because really, the goal of this, right, is prevention. Like if we can find a kid in the middle of kindergarten who's not quite heading in the trajectory, that's the goal. Deal with it. Prevention's a lot easier than remediation. I don't know if speak to these or
this particular goal, the first one on the left is one that the board and the leadership team developed back in June. It's up there. It's specific to the kind of work that Brian and Stacey are talking about. That sort of direct connection there.
Yeah, and what we talked about at our workshop this afternoon is that, a 10% increase in literacy is an aggressive goal, but that we owe it to our children, to our families, to our professionals to shoot for the stars. Very much aware the impact that the pandemic had on all of our kids, K through 12. And our data reflects that. We were really moving in a trajectory going up prior to the pandemic, and then we did the polar opposite, where we went straight down. So we need to get back to the practices that we were so invested in prior to the pandemic, and this is the year that we're really emphasizing. Yes, data has to be used. Yes, we understand the science of reading. We have to invest in these programs and get back to what we know research tells us, and where we were succeeding prior to the pandemic.
And I think this piece at the bottom is really critical.
For sure.
There can be no equity, no social justice without literacy.
And that's from Kareem Weaver, who,
The right to read.
yes, the movie was produced about.
And that,
That's
yeah, that concludes our presentation. We just have the last slide is some links for some extra information if you were interested in learning more about those topics that we should talk about today.
Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, I was just trying to digest all this, and I noticed there was something called Renaissance Star, which is the only place that secondary is mentioned. So I was wondering if you could speak to, you know, the emphasis on elementary and how it would translate into a secondary emphasis also.
Well, my job officially is the primary reading coach, and I focus on those bottom strands of the rope model. So I'm primarily focused on kindergarten through third grade curriculum implementation of Foundation of Read Fly, and then also focused on older struggling readers. And then we have EL programming that goes through grade 8.
But I think those assessments from BAMS is using the reading assessment through STAR and the high school as a way to capture some data around reading proficiency from 7th through 11th grade and use that data again to help intervene as needed and provide supports to students who are struggling. I don't know if you want to say more about that, Paul.
No, that nails it. The history of the that benchmark screening and progress monitoring with intervention at the high school is a shorter history than it is at the elementary school, but it's very clear the high school is diving into the deep end with lots of really good work, a really sort of good conception about how to use their academic support folks in the core classrooms in a way that's really, I think, is going to be really effective.
I think Jody has a question. Jody?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I happened to read that Digger article this morning, and I croaked too. So my question is, you're talking about raising it 10%. I'm curious as exactly where we stood back in 2010, 2015, and where we are now. The 10% means nothing to me. I know statewide reading is way down, and it's unbelievable in a state like Vermont that reading is that low, that low. I also feel personally that we have to stop blaming COVID, and we have to start from here, and we have to go way up. So is there a place that I can find out where the scores for our schools were, like in 2010, 15, and now?
Snapshot. Jody, the snapshot data would be, I think, would be a place to start. I know that they have sort of updated it. It's not the most very recent data, but certainly any number of data presentations that we've done at boards over time would also have that information, and we can make sure that they're, sort of, maybe one of those is archived. Yeah.
So where do I find it?
Can't be specific yet. I gotta nail down when a specific presentation. I've got a couple in mind, but I'll have to sort of look back through. But I would also go to the state, the Agency of Education that's called Vermont School Snapshot, and look at all of the schools in Windham Southeast Supervisory.
And does it give me history or just now?
I'll have to look. It certainly talks about change. I can go back and look there.
I mean, I know that they said here that they don't want to talk about changes and how things are taught, but having children and grandchildren and happen to be at Dummerston School, and I saw a lot of times, and I was on the school board, I saw a lot of times where things were changed, math and English. And it just seems like maybe you're just getting used to one program, and then another program, we buy another program. And, I would love to see the one program that really helps every child. come up. They don't all have to be, 90%, but come up a lot. So thank you. And if you find that, would you please send it to me, Paul?
Sure.
Thank you.
Liz, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm a retired preschool teacher and I had a home-based program. And what I noticed over the years was I promoted a really rich vocabulary for kids, both oral and receptive. Have a ton of books, read a ton of books, and the kids all did well. And I'm wondering if at some point it might be wise for the school district to speak with the early education preschools about how are they implementing like new vocabulary. I went around and visited a lot of them and I heard the word awesome so many times I wanted to scream, describing a really tall block structure. I mean, it was enormous. It was gigantic. There's just so many different words you can use and they weren't being used. So I'm wondering if we intervened at an earlier age, if that would help.
Yeah.
Liz, well, thank you for your reminder that reading is primarily based in oral language. You're absolutely right about that. So our pre-K coordinator and I, Carrie Beebe and I share the same office, and we have just been having conversations about how we could bring some of the similar professional development, but more age appropriate to pre-K. Those are just initial conversations now that we're working the same. But I think your thought about starting earlier is always better. And we're not talking about teaching kids to read in pre-K, we're talking about oral language development. Yeah.
And the other thing that I noticed that helped a lot was, and you don't find this in many pre-K classrooms, is like I had almost every Audubon guide there was on a bookshelf that was accessible to the kids. I had beautiful art books from different artists, and the kids used those things. I mean, and it just it sparked their curiosity. And I think we all know that if a kid's curious, they're going to learn more and they're going to learn it better. So I just, I have thoughts about that as well.
So it sounds like you were doing a good job of developing those top strands of the rope model with oral language and background knowledge. And one thing I just said about was Jody? Jody, so about investing in programs, the approach I take is about investing in teachers, and that we can't expect a program to teach our kids to read, but we can expect a knowledgeable teacher to teach our kids to read. I've never worked with a reading program that didn't need modification year to year, depending on the kids that came to me. And so I really think investing in teachers and teaching teachers to teach kids how to read, and that's been my drive to provide letters professional development. I know the work that you've been doing with our with EL implementation is that training teachers is the work I think that we do. Yeah. So it's a slightly different view on that.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's why we've invested in coaching over the last 3 years. The concept of on the ground, day-to-day coaching, mentoring, and support tied to more formal opportunities for professional development. Super important.
Yeah.
If you had an unlimited budget, is there anything that you would add to our $62 million budget?
I think I think we often underestimate how long it takes some children to learn how to read. And I think the data is, for some kids it takes a lot more time than we have time in the school day for. So I don't know, maybe slightly extended school day for some kids to get extra reading instruction.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think we have a lot of great things in place. I wouldn't ask for much.
I'm always a big fan of books, so real books that kids can put their hands on that they're interested in reading can go a long way. So,
Can I say something? I know, like, growing up, my parents, we didn't really have books. The only books, like, I had to read were, like, at school or at my babysitter. So I feel like as individuals, like, understanding where our role is in our community, and I'm not just saying, like, school board wise or like school wise, but I mean like just like outside of this, because like I struggled reading growing up, and it wasn't really until as I got older and I was able to like get my own books and have more access to it. And so like, and a part of the reason why I didn't have them growing up is because my parents, they just like, no one really showed them that way. So I feel like as like a parent, a grandparent, or as a daughter, a sister, an aunt, and uncle, like you have to just be like involved with like everyone, because the whole purpose of us being here is to make sure our community, our family, our world gets better. So yes, it's very important to take it in like a school manner, and like that's probably like that is why we're here, but it is important to like understand that this is for like our normal life. Like yeah.
It's a gateway life skill, and knowing how to read. It's the most important thing.
Yeah, like we can look at it from like an educator point of view all the time, but it's important to look at it as a sibling, a parent, a grandparent. So yeah.
Or a high schooler that wants to do a book drive for elementary schools.
That was great.
And you just signed up, Laura.
So Laura, I've long dreamed of a project that I'd like to do, but I don't have the time at the moment. And that is, I think every kindergartner should every kindergartner should have the chance to send a book to a newborn baby, or take a book, and then they should send another book every year until on their birthday, so that the student gets a book every year from their partner, and then by the time they start kindergarten, their original kindergartner will be in 5th grade and can be their mentor for the first day or two of kindergarten. And I think that just builds reading in our community as a priority. Unfortunately, I kind of have a busy job at the moment, so I haven't had a chance to really figure that out, but I think it's very doable if we can. Maybe we can convince a board member to take it on. She's not looking at me right now, she's ignoring me, but I think. Sorry, I shouldn't volunteer you.
I think I have enough on my plate right now. Thank you very much. But I think that's an excellent idea.
I mean, I just think there are lots of ways.
Just generationally, we're only talking a few years, but it is generational.
Yes.
And it puts something very positive in motion. So let's not keep that on the back burner. Let's really consider that. Yeah. Perhaps we can partner and do it together, Nancy. Yeah.
Three-way
Deborah,
exactly.
Deborah, I'd be willing to help with that. I would love to help with that.
Great, Liz.
Deborah's like,
So I just have a question about when you were talking about possibly providing an adapted version of this PD for early childhood. Would that, in our structure, do we provide professional development to the pre-K partners, or only to the pre-Ks that are in our WSESD schools and buildings?
We had partners today.
Okay.
At the PD sessions today.
So those things that you were talking about with Carrie would be for any pre-K partner or staff?
Well, I was saying, I've had one conversation.
Okay.
It was a suggestion, it was just a brainstorming little idea.
Sean?
Yeah, I'd just like to add the value of libraries. The Guilford Library has a program similar to what Nancy mentioned, so that every child that's born in Guilford gets a book. I don't think they continue it year after year, but the little libraries are a tremendous resource. And most of the towns in the district, or maybe all of them, have a Guilford like free library. So, and it's a tremendous resource.
Deb?
Yes, hi everyone. I just want to remind you all that Early Education Services has the Welcome Baby program, and that program provides all newborns in our service area, as well as children of families who move into our community, with a bag of goodies that include a book and a letter from the superintendent welcoming them to our school district.
Thank you.
Thanks, good point.
Right. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, I have one question for Mark before we leave the admin report, and then we're going to take a break. Mark, can you confirm that the next SD board meeting will be in another location?
Okay, let's look at the schedule here. We will be in Dummerston.
Okay.
Yep. The 24th.
With a shout out to Dummerston's one-room library that is absolutely brilliant, that needs to be expanded. I am a loyal attendee of events at that library. So just a shout out to the value of libraries.
I'd just like to thank our guests for a superb presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, it is currently 7:39. We're going to take a brief 5-minute recess.
Sounds good.
We will be back in 5 minutes. 7:45, we are back. Thank you very much. And we are on to the consent agenda. So I have been told that we can just, a motion can be made for the whole thing, but I think we should do the clerk's report separate, and then the warrants and payrolls, we could do those together. So is there a motion to approve the minutes of September 26, 2023?
So moved.
Thank you very much. Anne? Is there any discussion?
Just briefly, and Mark, I don't know if you want to address this at this point or not, but a couple of things came up at the last meeting.
Okay.
And this can wait until this certainly can wait until the next meeting. But I believe Robin asked if testing was done at other district buildings, such as Burge Street and Canal Street schools. So that was an open question regarding PCBs. So put that in context. Okay. And then the other issue was about staff stipends for leadership councils. And I think you were gonna look into that.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted, so those are the two items on page 4 and 5 of the agenda, just as a reminder.
I've looked into staff stipends. Mike Kelleher is putting together a proposal that will be run by the union. So, yeah, we've taken steps on that one. Great. In terms of PCBs, Frank, are you aware if Birch Street or Canal Street is tested?
I don't know if they were on that schedule. The state is completely, directing that. We can't ask them to accommodate us, so.
But certainly we know which buildings have been tested.
We do, yeah.
Okay. But you don't know whether those buildings have been or not?
Those are not really in our purview, so.
Oh, I see.
But Canal Street will be, because EES is now not utilizing that. But yeah, EES would handle that directly.
If Deb is still in the meeting, maybe she would be able to speak that.
We need to vote on this motion.
Yeah,
No, this is discussion.
Well, this is
But this is
discussion
not
of whether or not we
discussion.
approve the
Oh, I'm sorry.
minutes.
Yeah.
Mhm, got it, sorry.
so the motion has been made to approve the minutes of September 26, 2023. Is there any other discussion on the actual minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay.
To Mark, the proposal to the union for stipends, the board doesn't have, hasn't really decided whether we're behind that or not. We're still debating it, so.
Okay.
Okay, so then we will move on to the warrants and payrolls.
Since we were talking about that question of the early childhood buildings, can we just see, it looked like Deb was gonna answer that.
Deb, did you have a response to that?
Yes, and to my knowledge, those buildings have not been tested.
Thank you.
Okay, we need to do warrants.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the warrants and payrolls as they are listed in the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Kim. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the warrants and payrolls, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. So now you may recall that at the beginning of the meeting, the agenda was amended to include a motion. A motion from the Finance Committee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, tonight at the Finance Committee, Frank gave a detailed overview of where we are on the Oak Grove heat pump project. And what we need to do tonight is make a motion and then so that it will continue the process that has been ongoing for quite a while. So I would like to make a motion that the WSESD board approve contractor pre-qualification criteria as outlined in AIA Form A305-2020 for Oak Grove heat pump heating and ventilation improvement project.
And,
Could you say the name of that form one more time, Sean?
Here.
Did you want to?
I just wanted to clarify that we're able to make this motion because this spending has already been approved. We're merely approving the request for qualifications for someone to carry out the contract.
Okay. So is there any, I'm sorry, Robin, did you have were you asking a
No, I'm
question?
good. Kim put me up.
Okay, well, you have to back each other up. So is there any discussion, any questions, comments, thoughts? Before we, okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as made, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. Motion is approved. So now we move on to public comment on non-agenda items. We have 10 minutes set aside for that. Anyone making a comment can expect a response that falls into one of the following categories. Receive an acknowledgement of the comment with no further action planned. Receive an immediate response by the board chair or administration. Administration would be directed to contact and respond to the person. Clarification sought from the administration for a specified meeting. The topic would be added to a specified future board agenda. The matter would be referred to an executive session. A public hearing would be held on the matter. Is there anyone who would?
Jody has a hand.
Jody, looks like you have your hand up.
Do I have the right thing now? Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted. We can hear you.
Okay, I just hit the wrong thing before. This is kind of a clarification question, and it's probably more for for the administration, but it may be for the school board too. It came to my attention to ask this question at following girls soccer on Natowich Field several times, which is great to be playing on that field. But I am confused because on one hand, I hear from people and administration maybe, and maybe I'm mishearing, that that field really needs to be redone, that it's not a good field. And on the other hand, I hear that, oh, this field is great, the drainage is great, you know, we check it every year and it's fine. So I guess my question is, what is the real status of Natowich Field?
Somewhere in the middle. I think that one of our major challenge with Natowich is the amount it is getting used. So we're looking at ways to take the stress off of Natowich, but still offer, you know, high quality venue to play varsity sports, like potentially using Tenny Field for soccer, so that the girls and boys can play under the lights, which they currently cannot do on Tenny right now because of the infield and where that's placed. So we've surveyed Tenny Field. We just got the results today. Now we're looking at, you know, next steps and what we can manage and propose to the board and the community as where we go from here. But it's really assessing the use of Tenny, the use of Natowich, even exploring maybe some options at Sawyer Field as well with new technology.
So I guess your answer to me is there is absolutely nothing wrong with Natowich Field, that we don't need to do anything to make it a good field. You're saying we need to take some pressure off of it. So, because at the last meeting, I think you said that if we had to do something to Natowich Field, we'd lose a whole season of playing on it. So that says to me that the field isn't good and we're going to have to do something. So, and this says a little bit different. So this is where I was getting confused.
Yeah, I was responding to a question with that, Jody. If we had to resurface Natowich, what would the implications be? And essentially it would be unusable for likely a school year.
And what does resurfacing involve?
I'm certainly not a landscaping expert, but it would be like bulldozing the field, reworking it, new soil, and then growing grass and allowing that grass to really solidify with the earth, so that it won't just tear right up again.
So if that were done, could it have more use?
I don't know the answer to that, actually.
Okay, that's an honest answer. Thank you. All right, I was just confused, but I think you've cleared some of it up for me. Not all, but some of it. Thank you.
Okay. Hopefully we'll be able to bring some more specific information to our next meeting.
Gina. Yeah, so I have this group of friends that live in Hinsdale and they attend Hinsdale High School. And they told me, because I told them that I recently joined the school board, and they said, like, if you could help us, like, try to get this school back in order. Apparently their school is extremely underfunded. Like, they'll send me videos about how, like, bad the school is from the inside. And apparently it's bad enough where they don't even have, like, sports team that they could actually, you know, do stuff with. And apparently they don't have bugs, they don't have proper stuff for, you know, students to do schoolwork in. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of weird because it's a high school and they have the right to learn like everybody else does. And the fact that they're like extremely underfunded apparently to them, it's like, it's weird because they can't have the proper books and the proper gear to learn. Then how can they properly learn?
Yes.
So I was just asking, like, is there anything we could like possibly do about that, or?
I not that we could specifically do for Hinsdale, but you could encourage your friends to go to the administration, share their concerns, see if there are steps that can be taken to honor those concerns. I guess that's what would be my advice for a first step, would be to share the concerns that the students are having with the administration.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd just like to follow up on comments that Jody Normando made. Because I seem to recall, maybe it was in the spring, because students were present at board meetings, having to do with Natowich. And that Natowich needed to be resurfaced. That Natowich, I seem to recall that Natowich needed to be shut down for a year because the conditions were so deplorable, dangerous?
No.
No.
There have
Okay.
been plenty of loaded comments over the years. But what was presented in the spring is that the approach we're taking is to assess our fields and how do we take stress off of Natowich, and is there a way to better utilize Tenny in the fall so that our fall sports programs has essentially two venues that can provide opportunities for net games.
I recall about 3 or 4 years ago, there was the big debate. The athletic director just really made it clear that Natowich was unacceptable. He said that the pitch was too high, it was in the middle of the field, that it was really bad. Maybe I'll go back and review that videotape. But he really made it seem like it was totally in need of complete repair. And Jody mentioned a couple of meetings ago too, that this is a field that hasn't been resurfaced in, 6 decades or something?
58 years.
58 years. Yeah, so.
Sean?
Yeah, I think the difficulty with this discussion is that, I think I mentioned this at a board meeting not last one before that, was you really have to maintain a field so that the sports programs can, proceed every year. You can't really just yank something. It's not fair to senior athletes, certainly, or any athlete. So I think it's a real balancing act. And the idea of just taking in the bulldozers and taking all the sod, it's almost going to guarantee that we're not going to have the field for that year, which is, it's not fair to the students that are the student athletes. So I think what Mark mentioned, that if you have Tenny moved up so you could use Tenny for lacrosse, perhaps soccer, and obviously baseball, that it might give room enough so that that we have enough field space. Or, as Christina Naylor suggested, look into the purchase of the Famulari property so that we can increase maybe practice fields or something over there. So,
What property did you say?
Famulari. And I think some of the discord comes in many years ago when I was a member of the District 6 board. There was all the discussion about moving to an artificial turf field. And the advantage of that would have been that it would have answered a lot of the use problems and a lot of playability problems. Subsequently, I think very legitimately, it was decided by this board that we didn't want to risk the possible health effects of an artificial field. That could change. I'm sure that the manufacturers of artificial fields are trying to develop something which is safe because it does give a lot more usability.
Well, we've kind of gotten off. This is the public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anyone else who would? Jody, briefly.
What Sean just said, that's, I would encourage the board to look into it if there's a possibility of getting the more land down by Famulari. I think there's already being used by softball and maybe soccer and ski teams. I've been around long enough to know that the board did way back when didn't take advantage of some lands that were available around the high school. And I was very kind of concerned back then that they were losing opportunities. So I think if this is an opportunity, I would hope that the administration and the board would sincerely look into it, because I don't think there's anything else other than that around the high school that could ever come available. So I would encourage looking into it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jody. Is there anyone else, public comment, non-agenda items? And last time, public comment, non-agenda items? No hands? We are moving on at 8:04. So unfinished business, sexual abuse investigation. Attorney Goddard is still unavailable. I did follow up with our attorney to see if she was available to present us something to prepare to share with the public. And she is still not available for the personal reasons that I alluded to last time, and that's as far as I'm going to go into that, about her not being available. Is there anyone who would like to comment on that? Questions? Mark, give the admin an opportunity to weigh in if there's anything you have to share.
I don't have anything to share.
Mindy.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Dropped a few things. Sorry. So I'm wondering actually if the delay is that the board has not received information yet, or if it's just that you're waiting for Attorney Hext to prepare a public statement. Has the board received any information from the investigation at this point? Have you or the board?
We are waiting for Attorney Goddard to share some information with our attorney that we can share with the public. And I do recall, I believe it may have been you who asked at our last board meeting to have a particular indication when we were going to have something, so that people knew that that was the difference between what has been on the agenda routinely, and I have made note of that.
So the board has not I'm sorry. So
I'm just indicating that I remembered that you had said that you had made that request.
So has the board received any information from the investigation at this point?
As I said, we're waiting for Attorney Goddard to share information with our attorney that we can then share with the public.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else on this topic? Going one more time, anyone else on this topic before we move on? And we are moving on at 8:07. We are on to Policy and Amendment Committee. Deborah?
Thank you. The Policy and Amendment Committee presents the following policy to be readopted by the board this evening. So this is a motion, and it's D1, personal recruitment, selection, appointment, and background checks. This policy has been presented for 2 readings before this board and to the community at large. And there has been no comment or suggestions or objections to the policy as it exists on the website. So once again, the Policy and Amendment Committee presents D1 to be readopted this evening by the full board.
A motion has been made. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as read, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, thank you.
And then to continue, Policy Amendment presents the following 3 motions for a second reading. E10, School Crisis Prevention and Response, E15, Security Cameras, and F9, Student Substance Abuse Prevention. So this is being presented for a second reading this evening. Again, a 10-day reading period for the board, for administrators, for the community to take a look at these policies. They are all linked on today's agenda. So if there are any comments, please let the committee know. Again, 10 days. And so at the next board meeting, with no comment, no objections, it will be presented for adoption, and that will be a motion on October 24th.
Any questions, comments, thoughts, anything before we move on? Okay, we are moving on. On to new business. PCB lawsuit. Deborah?
So I would like to propose the following motion. The Windham Southeast School District, WSESD, School Board, approves the district's inclusion in the lawsuit against Monsanto regarding PCBs. The district is to be represented by Lynn, Blackman, and Meninsky.
Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay.
Deborah,
Then-
did you, it seemed like you were reading that.
I am
Would you
reading.
email that motion to me, please?
Okay, so we will move on to board matters training. Leadership Council updates. Did we have any Leadership Council updates, questions, thoughts, concerns, anything?
I have, sorry, typing in at the same time. I just wanted to mention that on the Academy Leadership Council last month, they did mention a couple of things. One of them was the idea of creating something like the Parent University program and that's in the Burlington School District. That's basically like programming specifically for parents in the district that can help them in a number of different areas that they offer, like learning and support and stuff like that. So that's something that I would support moving forward with. I'm not sure if that's really a board motion, but I'm just reporting that out because that's what was on our top 3 things that were mentioned in the report. And also that they've had to do some significant work on the playground and grounds because of the flooding over the summer. That, you know, there's a creek behind the school that overflowed and created some damage and flooding on the playground. So if it comes up as a budgetary item that I would hope the board would support.
Can you just refresh my memory on the Parent University? Was that can you speak to, I remember seeing an email, I believe from you.
It was a suggestion from the principal that she had seen that as a program that they offered at the Burlington School District and thought it would be really beneficial to our families and probably seems like other district schools' families too.
Is it something that we would have to subscribe to? Is it just?
No, it's like something that we would have to like create offerings.
Okay. Well,
It was like we would make our own parent history, is how I understood her comment to mean. Do you know anything about that, Mark?
I don't.
well, it sounds interesting. It sounds like a wonderful, potentially a wonderful resource to, for families, for parents, maybe even students themselves. I guess.
I mean, I haven't like learned that deeply about it, but even things kind of like what Alora was mentioning earlier, that she felt like her parents didn't recognize that having books in the house was something that they needed to be able to support their kids. And so things kind of like, you know, teaching parents, like how can we support learning at school, at home, or that kind of stuff.
It sounds like could be a great resource. I'm not sure how we would sort of implement something or create something like that, but maybe we can come back at the next board meeting with a sort of a framework for maybe what that might mean, or.
I mean, I think that I'm not sure that it's not really like a board action. I'm just mentioning it because that was what the Leadership Council asked to have highlighted.
So would this be something that would be just like a link accessible on I mean, who would be?
Sounds like maybe it's an initiative that Academy Schools exploring.
Yeah, or, well, I don't know if they're into exploring it or just interested in and wanting support. Is Kelly in the meeting? Maybe she can speak about this a little bit more in depth. Or I can just contact her and see if there's anything else that we need to do to support it, or maybe she and Mark can just talk about it.
Yeah, maybe she can reach out to Mark and just, and let him know what it is that, that they were looking at, and see if that's something that we can, that can be.
And I also just want to say one more thing about leadership councils in general, that the question that they asked in that meeting was, how do we get answers to our questions? Again, I know that's like a question that a bunch of them have asked, and I feel like that somebody said this at our last meeting, but I feel like that what makes the most sense is that all of this communication is the role of the board representative on these meetings. And so that instead of asking people to put their questions in the spreadsheet, that could just be the job of the board member, that like if the people have questions and the board member doesn't know the answer at that moment, that it's their responsibility to find out the answer and then tell it back to the committee.
This came up at the last meeting. I think it was Kate.
Yes,
they mentioned
that's right.
it.
And she doesn't have a board rep yet, so are you interested, Matt, in being the Green Street Leadership Council person?
Sure.
No pressure.
Okay.
And we'll hopefully have an orientation with LC shares by October, our next meeting on the 24th. So report out then, any updates as well.
And
we had the BAMS meeting this past Thursday, and it was great. There was a large turnout compared to the normal 4 of us that were sitting there last spring. There were people online, like Robin as a parent, and people in-house, so it was very nice.
And our candidate Rich was also
yes,
there.
Rich was there, and he's going to continue, which is fabulous. I know one of the moms asked about restorative justice, and it was hard seeing Mike is retired, but Keith mentioned how Doreen Burke just finished the program and is certified in restorative justice now, and she has a therapy dog as well that she'll be having at BAMS. And the moms did also ask if there was any way the BAM students could have not access, but some classes at the Career Center. And I know that's, but, you know, just there's students already that want to go that path, and trying to keep them in school.
And I will be happy to explore that possibility.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy.
I'm excited to do
I'm not making any promises.
I know you're
here,
not.
and It's not. I just have to make sure that I am, not talking out of turn with the state board rules and
Right,
Title
absolutely.
16, but I'm
But
happy to
what
try.
we have talked about is, and we've talked about this collectively, is how do we increase awareness for students and families about all of the wonderful things that are offered through the Career Center, that it is a pathway. You can take dual enrollment college credit courses, or you can also explore different fields of employment through the Career Center. So that's something that we talk about pretty routinely.
I was just gonna say, when I was a school counselor at Dummerston, I did a ton of career exploration stuff with middle school age students. So I think as the Career Center is a great resource, it doesn't necessarily need that kind of information, and education doesn't necessarily have to come from the Career Center.
But it's also something we could partner with the
Yeah, right.
counselors at the middle
Absolutely.
school on. Yeah.
Any other leadership council questions, updates, anything? Okay, then we are moving on to board subcommittees. Are there any committees that have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts?
Well, as I said, the Finance Committee met this evening at 5, and Frank laid out the whole budget development timeline. We don't have it in front of us yet, but at the next meeting, we'll have that, the next Finance Committee meeting will have presented the timeline. So the whole process of budget development is in the process as we speak.
Okay, thank you very much, Sean. Any other committees before? Okay,
We're trying to scroll down, but this is the end of the meeting, Kelly.
I know, wow, okay.
So can I just confirm, the next meeting is taking place at Dummerston?
Yes.
Got it, okay.
So now, I think unless somebody has something else, we will.
Madam Chair, there being no further business before this board, I move that we adjourn.
All those in favor of adjourning at 8:21, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, we are adjourned at 8:21. Thank you all.